Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Cook Inlet Tug and Barge is a marine transportation company specializing in harbor services with a primary marketing focus on the Port of Anchorage, providing their customers with quality-based service specifically tailored to their needs.
The National Weather Service.
Hello and welcome to the Thursday edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Kimberley Hoeppner. Today is January, I wish it was July, 29th, 2015. All the weather in just a moment will be for your public, marine, and aviation forecasts. And when we're not here, you can always check out our information at www.arh.noaa.gov or simply type in weather.gov and navigate to the destination of your choice. All of our weather is collaborated between your Juneau, Forecast, and Anchorage offices. And don't forget, you can always get our weather information line at 1-800-472-0391. And if you're into the social media, we're on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Now on to the hazardous weather of the day. Our focus is along the northern coast and northwestern coastal areas. As we have a cold front that's pushing towards the northwest, we have blizzard warnings out along the Chukchi Sea area and the northwestern Brooks Range. This is going to be starting around midnight tonight, and that's going to run through most of your day on Friday through midnight, and just a little bit longer for the northwestern, the Arctic coast here through 6 a.m. on Saturday. And then visibilities will be possibly down to 0 at times with very gusty winds between 25 to 35 miles with higher gusts up to 50 miles per hour. Also winter weather advisories in all the locations highlighted in yellow. These are for blowing snow. We will see some scattered showers, snow showers as we head through the next day or so, but this is mainly for the blowing snow, the snow that has already fallen in these areas. So just some minor snow accumulations in these areas. Blowing snow for the winter weather advisories are going to be seeing down to 1/2 mile or less at times. So looking at the weather systems that are coming our way, across the western area of the Bering, you can see a large plume of moisture. Well, this is rotating around high pressure, just settling into the Bering Sea area. The low pressure system that's pushing the front across the northwest is kind of situated along the eastern Russia area, and this, taking a look at this in motion, you can just see that sliding off to the north. Mainly just colder temperatures across the southern areas of the Bering with the darker cloud systems. Now across the southeast, it's a little bit quieter today, just a weak low pressure system here near the Dixon entrance, and mainly just lower clouds and colder temperatures across the state as high pressure settles in across the central areas of the state. So not many clouds, just a few scattered low clouds, activity breaking up. A weak stationary front along the northern Gulf areas. You can see just a little disturbance here near the eastern areas of the Kenai. Putting that into motion one more time. Here's the clouds just kind of moving inland, and some lower clouds are across the Gulf waters, but they're just so cool that they don't show up necessarily on satellite. Here's a good view across the Gulf waters today. Some low-level clouds all along the Gulf with the stationary front, bringing some snow along the Copper River Valley area up towards Eagle, and then the rain for the most part for the southeast has cleared up. They saw some breaks in the clouds today. The low pressure system currently out there is just near the Dixon entrance, and this is a warm front with some rain just situated to the southeast of that low pressure system. Now looking across the state, mainly high pressure is the influence across the state here. So just partly cloudy skies, a cooler northeast flow across the southwestern areas of the state. Clouds entrenched across the Bering, and just a stationary front along the western Bering areas with some mix of rain and snow out towards Shimia. As we head into your forecast tonight, the stationary boundary is going to stay along the western areas of the Bering. However, This low pressure system off of eastern Russia is going to be pushing a cold front towards the northwest coast. And here we have a very tight pressure gradient, and that's going to cause the gusty winds along the northwest Arctic coastal areas on up towards the Beaufort Sea coast. So we'll first see the conditions deteriorate first across the northwest, and then as we go forward in time, you'll see the winds will then be introduced closer towards the Beaufort Sea coast. Now here's a stationary boundary staying in place for tonight. We have an upper level disturbance from this low pressure system along the Gulf waters here, and this is going to be enough to initiate possibly some scattered snow showers all across the Copper River Basin, even possibly across towards the Anchorage Bowl and Kenai. Along the Kenai Peninsula, with temperatures moderating slightly, they might see a mix of rain and snow along the eastern areas of the Kenai, with possible rain showers along the northern Gulf areas. The low pressure system near the Dixon entrance is mainly going to stay in place, and pretty much the snow showers might make it in just inland from Yakutat, but drier activity here in between systems. The next system to watch for the southeastern areas will be the front that's just kind of pushing south of the Kodiak Island, moving up from the northeastern Pacific. Mainly light rain now, but this system is still developing. So as we head into your Friday forecast, here's this low pressure system that's moving up from the North Pacific. A 994 millibar low brings some light rain activity as it starts to spin up and become an occluded front, have some colder air advecting behind the system. So there's possibility for some mix of rain and snow along the Alaska Peninsula. You can see the gradient along this system possibly brings some gusty winds with it as it heads up to the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians. Meanwhile, the frontal system will be pushing into the northwest, and this blizzard conditions and the winter weather advisories will be well underway for Friday's forecast. Some snowy conditions, but like I said, not much accumulating, mainly just blowing around from the previous snow days that they've had. And also you'll need to watch out for the patchy fog across the central interior areas of the state, as high pressure is going to be very stable across the state for the next day or so. So we'll see patchy fog across the central interior. Across the southeast, mainly dry conditions, just with weak disturbances moving through, causing some just slight chances of rain, mainly across the southeast as you get closer to the Dixon entrance. The low pressure system out across the western Bering will be approaching. This system is going to be developing as well, but not as strong as the North Pacific low, mainly bringing a mix of rain and snow as it moves into the western areas of the Bering. And then as we head into your Saturday forecast, this cold front is going to start pushing a little bit closer to Shimia. Cold temperatures are going to be advancing towards the eastern Aleutians. The front will become stationary across the northwest over to the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. The wind gradient, pressure gradient across the northwest should let up as we head through your day on Saturday, but we may want to keep a watch on these areas as the advisories and the blizzard warnings out there may need to be extended depending on how quickly this system begins to lose its influence. High pressure is going to remain control over the central interior, possibly causing patchy fog across the Copper River as we head into the early morning hours. So the southeast will see some patchy fog in the morning, closer to the low pressure system that's moving up from the North Pacific. However, mostly clear conditions along the northern Gulf as this low pressure system just kind of struggles to make its way north, as the high pressure will be stabilizing across the central areas of the state. So it'll kind of just spin up just south of the Alaska Peninsula, and that'll cause some wind issues across the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, and here on across the western areas of the Gulf, along with mixed precipitation along the frontal boundary and snow on the backside of this system. With all rain, the warm air is going to be coming up from the North Pacific and heading towards the southeast once again. So taking a look at your temperatures from earlier today, we had such a wide range of temperatures from 44 degrees over at Ketchikan all the way down to below zero. We had 44 below at Fort Yukon. So very cold temperatures across the central interior, Warmer across the southeast with temperatures in the lower 40s to mid 40s. Across the Gulf, we can see warmer temperatures headed up towards Middleton Island at 41 and over towards the western Gulf, just over freezing. Across the south central areas, temperatures range from just below zero to the mid-teens, and along the Kenai, they saw temperatures rising up into the 20s. So a little bit warmer temperatures today. Interior still well below zero across the area, with temperatures remaining below 20 degrees to minus 30 degrees. Along the coast, the northern Arctic coast and back towards the Seward Peninsula, temperatures all mainly below zero there, with a little creeping up towards zero as you headed across the southwest. Temperatures across the southwest were mainly in the single digits until you got to the Alaska Peninsula. Huge temperature gradient here, creeping up to 30 degrees to just above freezing across the eastern Aleutians, and much warmer across the remainder of the Aleutian chain, right in the mid-30s. Then as we head into your temperatures tonight, not much of a temperature flux across the chain, with temperatures remaining in the mid-30s. Across the Alaska Peninsula, just dipping below freezing. Temperatures across the south would be between minus 2 degrees to minus 20 degrees. Large ranges all across south central, from just along the coast, seeing near 20 degrees, and just inland down into the single digits. Still remaining the coldest across the central interior, with temperatures near minus 20 to minus 30, with much colder wind chills as this system pushes in. So we'll see temperature wind chills between minus 20 to minus 30 across that northwestern coast when that system pushes in. For the southeastern areas, expect temperatures in the lower 30s. Now looking at your high temperatures, back up into the mid 40s for much of the southeast, and along the Gulf Coast, slightly warmer in the upper 20s to lower 30s. Central interior will not be as cold for most of the areas, with temperatures ranging from minus 20 to minus 35 degrees. Along the coastal areas, warmer temperatures, however, the wind chills will make it seem like it's between minus 10 and minus 20 degrees back towards the Seward Peninsula. However, they will see temperatures rising into the teens. And then across the southwest, temperatures will range to the lower teens to just below zero. Across the Alaska Peninsula, back into the mid-30s, and across the Aleutian chains and Bering, ranging from the mid-20s to mid-30s. And then taking a look now at your flying weather, we'll see mainly MVFR conditions just off the northern Gulf back towards the western Gulf as that low pressure system remains stationary, and then MVFR flying conditions across much of the Aleutians, and also across the northwest coast with possible IFR along the northwest coast with those blizzard conditions. Taking a look at your passes, we will see VFR conditions at Anatuvik and then also at Adigan Pass. And we'll see Lake Clark and Merrill Pass, both VFR for tomorrow. And then rainy will be VFR. We'll see windy at VFR, and then good flying conditions for Isabel Pass as well, and also for Mentasta Pass. We'll see Tanita at VFR, and then Portage will probably go from MVFR in the morning to VFR later, and VFR on the western areas. Chilkoot and White Pass will probably be MVFR to start and then improve to VFR later in the day. Now the freezing levels are just draped along the northern Bering towards the Alaska Peninsula, and then along the northern Gulf, with climbing from 2,000 to 6,000 feet across the Gulf of Alaska. And taking a look now at your icing, we'll see this light possible icing just along the western areas of the Gulf on towards the Panhandle, and then also across the northwestern coast. Looking at your jet stream for tomorrow, this ridging area, we'll see a very amplified pattern. So these systems will be kind of staying in place, with the strongest jet stream noted just well below the Alaska Peninsula. Here we have ridging, and this is just going to be blocking this low pressure from moving anywhere to the north. Looking at the 9,000-foot winds, here's this large amplified ridge across the Bering, with the strongest winds here along the Bering Strait on towards the northwest between 50 and 60 knots. A westerly flow all across the state, with lighter winds noted across the southern areas of the state, and then just light and variable wind conditions across the Gulf of Alaska for tomorrow, with a westerly flow across the southeast. Looking at your 3,000-foot winds, very similar pattern, strong winds around the low pressure system approaching from the North Pacific, and then a change of direction around the winds across the northern Bering areas. Stronger winds, of course, across the Bering Strait and the northwestern coast. So be on the lookout for lighter winds. Best is going to be best across the south and the southeastern areas of the state. So look at your turbulence mainly to be across the eastern areas of the Bering and also the eastern Aleutians, and also some turbulence across the Dixon Entrance area with that low pressure, mainly a directional change towards the Dixon Entrance, and then below 4,000 feet for all these areas. And of course the Bering, the northern Bering, all the way up towards the Arctic coast, they'll be problematic with turbulence mainly below 4,000 feet. In just a moment, Mike Ottenweller will be back with your marine forecast.
Meet the Orion family.
Hey there, stargazers. I'm Dean Regas, astronomer for the Cincinnati Observatory.
And I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Plot Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida. We're here to help you find your way around the sky tonight.
This week, we're going to focus on a group of winter constellations surrounding Orion the Mighty Hunter.
Often called the Orion family, these constellations have some of the brightest stars and most easily recognized star formations in the sky.
Now, the ancients watched the sky the same way we watch TV. Get this, when they tuned into the winter stars, they saw a giant hunter with 3 stars for a belt being trampled by a bull with 7 women on its back, while 2 hunting dogs were chasing after a unicorn and a bunny rabbit down by the river.
You might be thinking, how could anyone see that much into the stars? Don't worry, we'll walk you through it and introduce you to the Orion family. Okay, we've got our skies set up for 9 p.m. facing south. The constellation Orion takes center stage, and he'll play the central role in our winter sky saga.
There are a lot of bright stars in this area of the sky, and we have an ancient story that ties them all together. Orion's brightest stars are blue Rigel on his left foot and ruby red Betelgeuse marking his armpit.
Ew, stinky. But of course, Orion is most famous for his trademark belt, 3 stars all lined up. Not only are the belt stars your cue that you found Orion, they'll also point you to several other constellations.
Connect a line through the belt stars and keep going up and to the right. You'll pass just under a bright orange star called Aldebaran. Look out, because this is the menacing eye of Taurus the bull. Taurus has a small V shape of 5 stars for a face and 2 long horns. Now, if you continue past the V of Taurus, you'll run smack dab into the best and brightest open star cluster in the northern sky. These are the Pleiades, or 7 sisters. The Pleiades look like a little cloud to the naked eye, but upon second glance, you might be able to make out 5 or 6 of the individual stars. In a good pair of binoculars, they are just awesome.
Formed from the same nebula, the 7 sisters are young, hot stars burning the candle at both ends. These stars may only live millions of years, as opposed to our sun, which has a lifespan of about 10 billion years. But wait, there's more than 7 of them. The cluster includes hundreds of stars, with only the 7 brightest visible to the naked eye.
In Greek mythology, Orion fell in love with the sisters, all 7 of them. The sisters, well, they didn't care for him at all. Up in the sky, the sisters are sitting pretty on the bull's back, while Orion must fend off their sworn protector.
The gods let Orion bring his favorite 2 hunting dogs up to the sky with him. This time, let the belt stars point you down and to the left. When you keep going, you'll run into the brightest star in the sky, Sirius. Also known as the dog star, Sirius marks the nose of Canis Major, the big dog.
From Sirius, make a 90-degree turn up and to the left to find the little dog star Procyon in Canis Minor. Aw, what a cute little puppy.
Unfortunately, the dogs aren't helping Orion with the bull. They're too busy chasing after a unicorn, the constellation Monoceros, and a bunny rabbit, the constellation Lepus, by the banks of the cosmic river, the constellation Eridanus.
And you might notice this week another visitor passing through the Orion family. Day by day, the moon will move through Taurus and over Orion's head as January turns to February. So tonight after sunset, go to the heavenly movies and see a giant hunter being trampled by a bull with 7 women on its back, while 2 hunting dogs chase after a unicorn and a bunny rabbit down by the river.
Whew! This is the Orion family of constellations, and they're the same stars our ancestors have marveled at for thousands of years. You can get to know them all this month if you keep looking up.
And welcome back to the show. I'm meteorologist Mike Ottenwiller, and I'll be taking you through the marine forecast for the next couple days. As you can see here, looking at our sea ice and seeing how it's growing and advancing over the last couple days, it is now about 30 nautical miles to the east of St. Lawrence Island. It has advanced significantly to the south-southwest over the last week or so with these cold temperatures in place. But with that strong southerly flow that Kimberley was talking about, we don't expect much advancement in the next couple days, just some thickening in the ice pack itself. Same situation over here towards Cook Inlet, just expecting general thickening and increasing in depth of the sea ice, not so much a growing in extent. Let's get on into the winds and seas throughout southeast Alaska for Friday. You can see here a generally northerly flow through the inner passageways from 30 knots up near Lynn Canal, 20 knots as you get down towards Dixon Entrance. Seas are going to be running between 4 and 6 feet through that region. Over the coastal waters up near Yakutat, expect winds out of the northeast 15 knots, switching to the north and then back to the northeast at 20 knots as you move towards the south, with a little bit of higher gusts out of bays and passes down towards Craig and Ketchikan. Seas will be on the order of 6 to 7 feet here on Friday. Now as that front approaches from the south on Saturday and high pressure builds over inland over interior Canada, we do expect winds to increase and seas to slowly build. 45 knots out of the north up near Lynn Canal, becoming 45 and then eventually 25 down towards Clarence Strait. Seas are going to be up near 11 feet in Lynn Canal and down to 5 feet near Ketchikan. Over the coastal waters, expect easterly flow coming into that frontal system with higher gusts near 55 knots near Cross Sound and 35 and 25 knots for the eastern portion of the Gulf. Seas will be on the order of 9 to 7 feet towards the northern portion of the area. Looking on into Friday towards south central, expect for the Cook Inlet 10 knots out of the north and seas running about 2 feet. Towards the Prince William Sound out of the northeast 15 knots and seas 3 feet. Same pattern that we've seen the last couple days over the eastern portion and the western portion of the Gulf of Alaska, becoming easterly and then northeasterly down towards Kodiak Island, 15 to 25 knots with seas generally 6 to 7 feet. And as we look towards Cook Inlet and then down towards Shellicroft Strait, 25 to 30 knots through that region out of the northeast, seas running about 9 feet. On Saturday, again, we'll see an increase in winds and a slight building of the seas, looking towards Cook Inlet northeast at 15 knots and 4-foot seas. Similar conditions that we saw on Friday, we'll see again on Saturday, 15 knots out of the northeast, 3 feet for Prince William Sound. And into the Gulf, 25 becoming 40 knots down towards the southern Gulf. Seas building from 8 feet up to 14 and then eventually 20 feet as you get just south of Kodiak Island. Looking towards Cook Inlet and down towards Shellicroft Strait, 30 to 40 knots out of the northeast and seas again running from 10 all the way up to 18 feet as that northeasterly flow continues to act on that waterway there. And then into Friday for the Alaska Peninsula, we see again northeasterly flow, 25 to 35 knots south of the Alaska Peninsula. Seas 5 to 9 feet north of the peninsula and 10 to 11 feet just south of the area there. Freezing spray will again once be an issue along the ice edge. And into Saturday, again, freezing spray, another concern for the areas right along the ice edge there. Northeast winds 30 knots and seas 5 to 10 feet on the north side of the chain and 45 knots out of the northeast, again coming around that frontal system there, moving up towards the Gulf of Alaska from the North Pacific. 45 knots and 21 to 23 foot seas. As we get into the Aleutian Islands, again, northeasterly flow is the theme here, becoming easterly and then eventually southeasterly as you get towards the western Aleutians. Seas are going to be anywhere between 12 to 9 feet and winds will be running between 30 knots and 20 knots as you get out just west of Adak. On Saturday, expect northeasterly flow for the eastern Aleutians, 30 to 40 knots. Seas north of the chain, 12 feet, and south of the chain, anywhere between 12 and 17 feet. Staying north to northeast as you get through the central Aleutians and then becoming more variable out towards the western Aleutians at about 15 knots, seas running between 9 and 13 feet. As we look towards the west coast, we do have that northeasterly flow continuing to push off the Bristol Bay and the lower Kuskokwim Valley here, 20 to 25 knots. Again, ice edge right on this area here, so we see some seas building from 4 to 9 feet as you get towards the Pribilof Islands. 11 feet a little bit closer to St. Matthew Island, and southerly flow coming in advance of our warm front there, after our warm front out of the south, 20 knots near St. Lawrence Island. On Saturday, an easterly flow about 20 knots for the northern portion of these zones, and northeast 20 to 30 knots with seas running between 6 and 8 feet down towards the Pribilof Islands. Freezing spray once again an issue towards Bristol Bay and just there near the west coast. As we get towards the Arctic coast, this is where we see our southerly flow really bringing up that surge of warm air and keeping that ice pack from really growing a whole lot. 30 to 40 knots out of the south until you get over towards Prudhoe Bay and Kaktovik, looking for southerly winds 15 to 25. And on Saturday, expect winds to calm down just a little bit, 20 to 25 knots out of the south, becoming southwest and westerly 25 to 30 knots towards the Arctic coast. So recapping tonight's weather, as Kimberly mentioned, we do have a frontal boundary draped across the southeast and towards south central, bringing some light snow showers to the Copper River Basin. This should not be much in the way of accumulation with lots of dry air in place near the surface. The bigger story will be tonight into tomorrow as we look towards the northwest portion of the state. Blizzard conditions and winter weather advisories are in place for this frontal system as it makes its way inland on Friday, and then a little bit further inland on Saturday as we see things taper down and our system approaches from the northern Pacific towards the Gulf of Alaska for late in the weekend. Have a great night.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.